Okay. So we just talked about tribes and parenting and I just went on to the not so good examples about the tribal people.
Mm.
Mhm.
And speaking of tribal people, how how was your experience of getting interviewed about the Ista tribe?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, was interesting. I did not know that I'm gonna get the last insight that it's gonna stick with me. I I went to this was the second interview, and in the first interview there was only one producer, the guy, and and I'm like having the feels already, and my body starts shivering, and I can't remember things. I start to stutter and all that stuff, and it's like, and he's just like non-reactive. And I was like, it's like there's so much going on. It's like I don't know what's important. So you're gonna tell me what's important for you for your documentary? And he's like, yeah, sure. I'm just gonna ask and be curious. And he hasn't asked any fucking single question in an hour. Well, maybe like two questions, clarifying questions. And I keep wondering, it's like, what information does he need about this? Like, it's your documentary. It's like, what is it? And he's like, well, we just want to hear everybody, right? So, okay, so I'm just gonna tell my story. So, and the second producer, she was validating and nodding, and every time she validated, I noticed that I felt encouraged to share and talk more. So somewhere from the mid of the conversation, I was in it. I was like, and this happened and that happened, and I was making jokes, and I was like, and that guy is like, my God, I was like, what I want is to meet him and punch him in the fucking face. And it's like I went full on. I was excited to really enjoy myself. Um, and then at the end, they asked a few questions. And then the first producer is like, that's very interesting. It's like before you shared that you're so open, that you used to be very open and social and excited and very curious and outgoing. And now you seem to be afraid to leave the house. It seems like whatever you joined those organizations for, they kind of provided like a reverse service. They closed you down, and they took a lot of things, and they scared you. Now you're living, having symptoms. And I was like, fuck yeah, that's very true. It's like I did not
Mm.
it's hard for me to conceptualize myself as a victim. It's like, yes, I was victimized, and I'm a victim. The harm has been done. I'm living with the consequences, but it was very difficult for myself to put myself in that specific context, because
Mhm.
that makes my like it just makes such a sad story that right. It's like it's sad. It's like I joined you for you to help me, and you abused me and took my life away from me.
Yeah.
So that was really, yeah, it kind of made me thinking how fearless I was and how fearful I am now with all the healing and the personal development and all the exploration, all the great things that I was promised.
Right.
I'm terrified to leave the house,
Yeah.
and I'm having fucking like up to 10 diagnoses that I'm dealing with on a daily basis, and a bunch of symptoms. Like, yeah, whatever was promised, it was not delivered. It was quite the opposite that happened for me. And also other people, like the people that complained, and I done, it was so easy for me to conceptualize your situation, but it was really difficult. Like I can see people who experience the same thing. It's like, I'm so sorry that you joined for this great thing, and that thing was used against you to weaponized, and then things were taken away, like agency and purpose and mental health, yeah, relationships, career, money, all that
Mm.
stuff. Yeah. So that was significant.
Yeah, that's a really well, that's their angle then of the documentary. If that was something they ended with, that's going to be which is actually very like a very meaningful point for documentaries like that, to be like, look what the purpose of what people are seeking is, and then they find places like this, and then look at the outcome. It actually wasn't what they were seeking for, in fact the opposite. And like basically none of them have those risk factors associated or even acknowledged. Imagine joining a course for sexual freedom. It promises you like all these amazing things that you could only dream of. But and then in somewhere it says, but it might actually make you worse and not want to leave the house and cause psychological distress
And not want to, in losing your libido and not wanting to have anything to do with the opposite sex and feeling afraid of any kind of encounters with the opposite sex because you might be abused in the training as a result of the training.
yeah. I'm well. So I cancelled a workshop I was gonna do, an honest body love workshop, kind of based on similar um, kind of theory, that it was meant to be about body shame and combating body shame. And I was like reading literature and stuff about the body positivity movement. And a lot of literature don't promise that any of this movement actually solves any solution. It's just a really great industry. Like people can create an income from it. And like that's kind of essentially the same risk, that is like people could join this workshop and leave with worse body shame. Like they could leave with a worse relationship with themselves and women and how they relate to women. Like that is an absolute possible outcome. And there's no way for me in good faith or to know with certainty that that can't happen.
Yeah.
So also like yeah, not only the personal victimization of um, closing your heart when you were trying to open it, but also that it like kind of instills this just doubt in like what you're teaching. Like I'm so I feel like I've like lost my spirituality in a way, because I don't believe anymore in the like messages and purposes that I was teaching to lead my life. Now I'm like, I just don't agree. I don't agree. I don't believe in that God anymore.
Yeah. Same, my therapist, so I'm working with a cult recovery therapist. And so she asked me, we have met after maybe 6 or 7 weeks of summer break, and she's like, so how's your mental health? I was like, well, I'm just having like 1,000 thoughts per minute, processing machine in my brain, remembering every flashbacks and like trying to understand what happened, just like constantly, like cannot shut this down no matter what I do, right? I have no control. There's like constant work that my brain does with everything that happened. And then she's like, well, did you try to process the thoughts? And I was like, I don't know what that word means anymore. That word was ruined for me. Processing has been ruined. I don't even know what that word means anymore. The same way how the word integrity was ruined for me. Like I thought that integrity is when you can own up to what you did. Apparently, integrity is that you're integral, that you're not gonna be impacted. You're boundary full in a way. So that word is like was completely newly introduced to me by my therapist. Like everything, like
Oh, like the actual definition of integrity means bound to have. Oh my God, I didn't know that either. Wow. What does she mean by process her thoughts? How do you process thoughts?
so she did not explain. Because we started talking about the fact how every kind of self-support tool that I have has been weaponized against me, and I am left like literally everything is ruined or like hijacked, has been stolen and introduced differently in a way that has been that I have abused myself with. My agency for therapy and self-analysis and whatever the process means, I don't even know anymore. That's like to be continued from maybe the next session. I will figure that out. Um, that yeah, that was like, this is what I also wrote in the blog about the fact that Brad Blanton, he did not abuse his, not only he abused the power of his power as a professional or as a therapist, He abused therapy itself. He also abused spirituality in a way that I'm afraid to believe that there's a force that's higher than me, because I'm afraid to like fall into the magical thinking again and abuse myself with people who will take advantage of my beliefs. The idea about the closed heart, the fucking, so I also in the tantra, in like spiritual tantra circles as well, talking about the closed heart. It's like, yes, it's like you can open your heart, it's safe here. The guy who abused me the last in the Sean, he his hook, the why how I got hooked, he said, it seems like you have closed your heart to people, it's okay to open it. And I bought into that idea, and I thought, yes, my heart is closed because of what happened to me. And yes, I would like it to be open. And he sort of like positioned himself as the person who can open it up.
Mm.
And that is fucking sick.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd kind of forgotten that the closed heart metaphor is used in a lot of that language too, as a way to like shame people for feeling guarded. Like,
Yeah.
how dare you feel suspicious? There's something wrong. And it's such a negative connotation to have a closed heart. No one wants to have a closed heart. Everyone wants to have an open heart because it sounds like a villain or someone who's cold. So it's like, yeah, you're not allowed to be suspicious here, rather than like you should absolutely be suspicious here. It's very, very smart response. Yeah.
My friend who just came back from Finn Horn Foundation, that she's
Oh.
3 weeks there, and she wrote to me the day before she left. I did not know that she's there. Right. If she told me, it's like, hey, I'm gonna go visit Finhorn, and be like, what are you gonna do in another cult? It's like, you just left 2 cults. Don't go to the next one. But she was independent, strong, independent woman, and she made her own decisions. And she went with her friend, with her colleague, from the cult into another cult.
Oh.
And she said that she felt triggered throughout these 2 weeks, and she was trying to figure out what's wrong with her.
Oh no.
Yeah. She had like she bounced heads with the leadership there, and her colleague, she thrived. Her colleague, her friend with whom she went, she was like the happiest puppy, the most joyful, purposeful, just like blissed out how much she loved to be there. And so my friend thought, what the fuck is wrong with her? And she has all the fucking tools, from therapy and personal development coaching. So she kept like doing the reversals and how does this remind her of her mother, father, whatever. It's like all that shit. Eventually she sent me a message, me like, hey, it's like I'm not feeling well. And I'm like, because it's a fucking cult. You're put in an environment where you expected not to have boundaries, where you're shamed for your trauma. It's like something is wrong if you have some sort of any kind of guardedness or suspicion. The intimacy is forced.
Yeah.
The old interactions are around, come on, put the guards down, because we want to influence you, join us and belong with us, synchronize with us, because that's what drives us. And
Yeah.
she's like, no fucking way. It's like, I don't know who I am. I spent, she grew up in a high controlled family as well. And she's like, I grew up without knowing who I am. I came here to find myself, not to join, not to like kind of like synchronize with another group. So she's like, she
Mm.
bounced heads with the leadership as well. And eventually she sent me the message, and I told her, I'm worried about you and I want you to get out. And she's like, no worry, I'm like leaving tomorrow already. And it's like, thank God that I talked to you, because that's when I validated her feelings basically.
Mm.
And that's when she stopped questioning herself and she could move on.
Yeah. It's so ironic. This book that I'm reading is from 1995 is when it's written, and it's not changed a single bit. And that's from anecdotal evidence. There hasn't been another book for me to read, but I've met people like growing up there. I wasn't really so involved in all the dynamics, but it was all the same stories. It's all the same shit. The same things that people are complaining about, like just what you're describing there with the lack of boundaries, and also the status game that exists within communities like that, like what you have to do to gain status in the ranks is to use a particular language that's very like love and lighty. It can't be too cerebral. You know, if you're too intellectual, that's like low status. If you're in your body, that's high status. If you talk about trauma and if you're psychoanalyzing yourself and others casually but in like a really um what like skilled way, again like high status, even if you're not a therapist. So it's just all the same. And I think I mentioned to you that I was going to tell my mom about the book.
Mm-hmm.
That Fintorn does loads of work with schools. Like as an association, they have so many different companies and buildings which you wouldn't know they're associated with, but they all are. They're so connected. One of which is the Moray Steiner School.
Mm-hmm.
And the Steiner School are doing courses for like a type of teaching, and they've partnered up with Aberdeenshire Highlands and Islands Council to get funding to teach other people to do the teaching. They're doing it in Fitty Hall right now. So my mum like popped round yesterday at lunch to be like, hello. So then said she was going to do it again today. So just when I was about to say what happened with the book, I was like, is my mum downstairs? Anyway, so I think last time I told you that I was reading this book about, it's called like Hypocrisy and Dissent in the Fintorn Foundation. It's just the tea. Oh my god, it's so juicy. Like the stories in it are shocking and upsetting, and like very upsetting for the people that went through them, but so well worded in a way that like conveys what was wrong with those like what went wrong, why they were unacceptable, and the kind of evidence behind like where he got the stories from. It's just a really well written book. And I like told my mum about it, and I joked to you last time I think that my mum would say something like, "Ah, oh, everyone's got a different experience," or blah blah blah. And like word for word, I said, "Oh, mum, look at this book," and she was like, "Oh, well, life is like a river, and every time you enter it, it's different."
Oh, cringe.
But that would be like such a high status thing to say in Fintorn. Like that's like a
Mm-hmm.
perfect, like, you know, nature metaphors, something to do with not judging people and especially bad behavior because everyone's very human.
Yeah, everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's also, okay, so I'm just gonna keep on building here.
Yeah.
So today I'm on Facebook. I'm still friends with some people who are still in radical honesty, and one of them is Sunshine, and she shared her weekly or daily spiritual remedy. And for I was having breakfast and I was just curious what was that about? And she talked about groups and how she wishes you to find a group where you're supported and loved and accepted, and in case you are in a group that is diminishing you, that's making you smaller or you feel controlled, it's like just leave that group and find another group and get inspiration. You can join our whatever the it's not an institute, like you can join our organization, which is she's one person organization, right? So like she's like us, so you can join us in our community. She's a one person. um and it's like you can check it, so you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out my page and donate for this cause or whatever the group. And she's like don't stay with the bad people within the groups, look for groups that matches your values and things like that. So despite the fact that it's a very outdated marketing strategy, right? So which I recognize because I have used that myself. It's very 2015. um, the problem with promoting loving and all accepting groups is that people don't behave that normally. That you, unless it is a cult, people will keep some distance and be suspicious. It will take time to get to know you and meet you as a person, and your values, and you will clash in opinions and you will have arguments and discussions. And yes, you might be accepted, but to a very specific limit. There is no such thing where all accepting group unless it's a cult. And you're all accepted until in the recruitment phase, they love bomb you. And you're like the most wonderful, impactful thing that ever happened to that group. It's like, oh my God, you join us to change the world together with us. We love you. Come join and pay more money into this more expensive thing. You know, it's like donate. And then the bait and switch happens, where it's like slowly over time, the love is only catered if you do what the group wants you to do. So, and it's like it's not communicated that way, but you only get rewarded, or you only uh, rise in status if you say the right things, if you do the right things, if you donate enough, if you spend money, if you go to the next event, if you buy the next course. Only then you get this shower of validation approval. And in radical honesty, it was if you can distinguish between noticing and thinking. It's like if you will say, I notice feeling and I imagine thought story, you will rise in status. And you will, like, if you have done 2 workshops and not one, that gives you status because you have perspective. Now you can look at the newbies and compare yourself with them, and then you feel like, oh my God, I'm just so much better at noticing and reporting, at distinguishing noticing from imagining, which
If you
is
bring your mom, if you bring your partner, my God, extra status points. Wow, like bow down. You've like got a you got recruitment.
yeah. And you will not get any of those goodies and that love and appreciation if you only do your own thing, if you only be authentic, and because that's not how people work, right? That's not how groups work, unless those groups are cults.
That's such a good insight. That's such a good point about the be part of spaces that are loving and don't be part of the ones that are not, because that really sets you up not for like that really like fucks you up in terms of a work environment, because a work environment for a start, all organizations will be with people that you don't like, and you have to navigate to be successful in the career somehow how to get on with people that you don't like you have to learn that skill. um and then also like because like my partner does stuff like this in organizations, he does coaching, but like organizational performance coaching, which is a whole different. I mean, they like run away from shit like NLP and all the leadership shit that comes in. Like the like I still don't really know what he does, but it seems quite good in that it's like it has a measure for success in that they drill for oil, boo, but they get like they the type of training is like, how can we become more efficient with this process? How can we reduce waste? How can we make sure that everyone along the process is working optimally? And optimal can mean like making sure they have enough rest. What do they need? Like, and that's the type of coaching it is. So it's very measured. There's nothing that's like guessed or like in like kind of measured by a thought or a feeling. It's just like, this is the process. But part of that process is to do with meshing people in groups. And there's this thing called, is it like forming is the first process, and then storming, people storm and they like fight and stuff like that. And then I think it's like norming. I can't remember, but there's this whole process about what happens periodically with all groups when people get together. And it does require messiness. It does require rubbing up against people badly to get a team to like perform well. Definitely is not lovey dovey from the beginning. Like, that's a really good point that if it is like that, that's kind of a red flag in itself.
Yeah, fascinating.
Forming, storming, norming, performing. That's it.
Sounds culty.
Does sound culty, doesn't it? But the point is that the storming is one of the first start. Like, to get a bunch of people that are different to work together, you're gonna rub up against people.
Mm. Oh, cat. Oh, I want to do with my feet and cats there.
Oh,
So, I'm suspecting that some bad actors have used hypnosis techniques against me to, know. So I was like, just like it's a common sense that everything can be weaponized. For example, the way that radical honesty have been weaponized against people who don't know radical honesty means that any kind of technique, NLP technique and hypnosis technique, can be weaponized against people. And those who are not familiar with it will not know, because how would they? It's like if you don't know that mirroring is one of the ways in NLP to like build connection and rapport, you wouldn't know that someone is mirroring you. So I sent email to two hypnosis organizations. There's the hypnosis examiners, like the certification. What is it? Like the organization that examines hypnotists, newly trained hypnotists, to make sure that they are qualified to work with people, are qualified to apply hypnosis. I sent an email to them and to another organization. And the examiners, they respond that there's no such thing. They said, no, this, I'm just going to read this for you because it's pretty funny.
What did you say? You said how can hypnosis be weaponized, or how do you know if it's been used against you wrongly?
I'm going to read you the whole thing. So I sent an email with the subject line: how can one tell if hypnotherapy was used against their will?
Hmm.
Asked, I'd like your guidance on the matter how to tell if and when someone is abusing hypnotherapy technique. How can one tell? Do you have any guidelines or things to look out? Blah, 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 blah. And so their answer: American Council of Hypnotist Examiners. Dear Yura, salespeople, politicians, etc., are often skilled in steering people to their way of thinking. There is no set guidelines to look out for. If you would like to learn more about hypnosis or NLP, please consider taking a course or reading a book about it.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
That's terrible.
I know. It's like we're fucked. They're teaching, they're like the head of the they're like the most responsible, that's the most responsible organization. Those bad people are using hypnosis and NLP, but there are no guidelines how to protect yourself from it. And we're like the head of the people that are teaching NLP and hypnosis. And like, if you're interested, take our course if you want to learn
Like,
it.
that response aligns perfectly with that conspiracy theory that the CIA was like created Fintorn to experiment with brainwashing techniques, because like you would want like the hypnotherapy massive organizations on side too, and you wouldn't want people to know if they've been brainwashed because you wouldn't want that information to be available. I'm gonna like put my tinfoil hat on, and that's me like justifying that it's all just part of a government scheme to so people don't know if they're being brainwashed. That's shocking. There's like so many people that talk about the issues of like how social media like brainwashes us as well, like how it grabs our attention. Like there's so much resources out there for that, but like a hypnotherapy organization can't respond to that with a bit more information. Yeah, that's really bad. Did the other one reply?
No, they didn't. Um, I wonder why, but the same with the British. What is it? The British
Psychological
Technology.
BACP,
Um,
British Associates of Counselling and Psychology.
let me. I can't find the email that I sent. The British Psychology Society? No, not this one. British Psychology Association. Something, something. British Association for Counseling and Psychotherapy.
Hmm.
So I also sent them an email about some of the therapists that are part of that association who are also in the cult. but I have not personally worked with that specific therapist and that I was asking about inquiring or reporting. I don't know. It's like, but I did because I don't know how this works, right? There's no like when I go online and read, it's like there is no like, well, this is how you report, and this is the documentation that you send, and like this is when you do like there's no guidelines, right? So I'm just like send out like a pigeon. I wonder what that gonna look like. And so I also sent some screenshots just in case because I don't know. And the response I got from the secretary assistant and be like, well, we received your so and so, and these are the guidelines that you had that we have for you to like apply for to report someone. And it's like it's a long, long ass text. It's a long ass text. It's like maybe 3, 4 pages long. So I read through it and I was like, well, there's no point about if you suspect your therapist to be associated with some evil group, for example, or like with some unethical organizations. Like, there's no way to like to
Mm.
address the problem that I am facing, for example. Um, and so basically, they said that you can try to fit it in those standards, or I can just forward your email to the disciplinary panel of that association. And it said, okay, just forward the email. I wonder what's going to happen. Nothing happened. They just did not reply.
Yeah. I think the BACP is probably one of those organizations that have become like monopoly to like they you need to be accredited with there's no like competing course provider for psychotherapy and counseling. Like that is the course that you need to take, and it's huge. Like it's a massive organization. I bet that they don't have like it seems like a really highly accredited thing to have, but based on that, I can imagine people get lost all the time in it. Like it's not actually that well run. Yeah.
Yeah. The same with ICF, which isn't the International Coaching Federation.
Yeah.
When I looked through the list of those accredited coaching organizations that they accredited, those are so obviously some of them are cults. Obvious, just from the title. It's like a magic thinking unicorn farm. It's accredited. I can even open the website and read some of the organizations right now.
Oh,
It's a joke.
oh.
It's hilarious. And I think that's something that I need to like write my pitch about
Yeah.
for the news article.
Yeah.
But fuck the backlash that I might get then from all the fucking biggest stupid organizations. It's like trying to report the Titanic is sinking and they're like, no, we're fine. Fuck you.
Yeah, it's so true. They're making lots of money from accrediting these places. Like, I mean, it is a good angle for a pitch, but you're right. What would the backlash be? Um, I guess that's what journalists face all the time, isn't it? But so you wouldn't be writing it, someone else would write it, and it would be them that would be them and the publishing organization that would be liable for backlash, which is what they've got policies in place for things like that. You know, that's
Yeah.
why good journalists, oh man, we're so lucky that we still have journalists, you know, in the way that like anyone can write anything on social media, but to write an article for a newspaper, you have to have so much evidence. You really have to know. You can't just write rubbish. You have to really know what you're talking about.
Unless you're an Israeli in the New York Times.
Yeah.
Did you hear
Well,
that? That was
no.
there was someone who's not even a journalist. She happened to write an article for the New York Times, which was the propaganda and disinformation about 40 beheaded babies in the Palestine Israel story. Apparently, she doesn't even have the journalist education. She was just like the most random person, former military member of the IDF in Israel, somehow got through, wrote that just like lies, and then the whole world believed it because it's New York Times, baby.
And see, that's exactly the shocking bit because usually to write for the New York Times, you would need to have all these qualifications and insurance and evidence to back up what you're writing.
Yeah. So nobody knows how that happened. There is still under investigation. But yes, the reality is that I did contact two German journalists that work for big newspapers, and they said they do not write about cults because it's just not worth it. It's too litigious. It's just like a lot of it's it's not worth it. Nobody's buying. Also, Anke Richter said because nobody is buying newspapers anymore. Like the journalists are really trying to write good stories in order to get some traction. So
Mm.
it's not a good business.
No, it's not. Especially if yeah, you're not. They're not too big to get sued now if people aren't buying the papers. Yeah, it's really tricky. I mean, I'm really curious how this is going to go with TEDx, whether it will also be the case that it just won't get past any of the checks, like telling stories about, um, yeah, telling stories about psychotherapy cults or whatever. If it's just like this is not worth it for us. Juicy story, but just not worth the backlash. Mm.
Yeah, it just reminds me of someone, a journalist asking the question of the woman who um, reported Donald Trump about her he sexually assaulted her, and she reported it, like, and she won eventually. And then the journalist asked, well, people are saying that you're doing it in order to get attention. And she's like, there is no positive attention about reporting things like that. There's never positive attention. And it's the same way with cults. There's nothing positive about reporting about cults. The backlash and all the brainwashed, angry people, they're fucking insane and they feel like they're above the law.
Yeah.
So it's dangerous. And yeah, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah. It's dangerous and also life sucking, isn't it? Like kind of more more sane people would just move on and get on with it. But it's like yeah, there's something also very I don't know if it's like a bone to pick or wanting to understand more or yeah, I don't know what it is, but I can see why people would just want to move on and not touch it again and get on with their life and pick all the pieces up.
Yeah. These are my concerns about radical honesty doing the same to people who later are nudged into Brad's hands and Tabor's hands.
Mm.
Um, Specifically, my former client, you know, he says he's in therapy with Brad, but Brad doesn't have a license to work with people to do psychotherapy, but he thinks he's in therapy and
Mm.
he's miserable.
Yeah.
And I'm worried that he might die by suicide because he just can't get out of the jail of his own mind, he says, you know?
I know it's so ironic that that's something that Brad talks about, that our minds kill us without any sort of consideration that how telling, like, kind of encouraging people into existential crises also kill us. And there is sorry, like a super evolved and important reason to why we deceive ourselves and keep ourselves busy because we need to survive. You can't ponder too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't ruminate too long. It's not good for you.
So I don't and so and speaking of Sunshine, I also shared with Sunshine that I felt when I was doing honest dating events, I felt like I was the pimp where I would invite everybody, people would pay me money and I would facilitate and I would not screen people.
Mm.
And I had one who has like a horrible history, criminal history, come to me and honestly share, about himself. And I felt responsible that I just invited a fucking predator to mingle with a bunch of very vulnerable people. Um, and maybe there are more predators that don't present as predators because, it's like, what's like, there's no point for them to reveal that part about themselves because they're there for the vulnerable people, for those who overshare, people they can later use that information against them to get whatever they want from them.
Mm.
Sunshine, she really understood that. And she's like, oh, yeah, it's like basically you act like a pimp. Of course, the predators will be nice to you and everyone will be like, keep coming over and over because you keep bringing more vulnerable people.
And access. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just felt disgusted and I stopped doing those events because at this point, I think it's very dangerous to invite people. Like, just like it's dangerous for Easter to invite people to be sexual, where you just like drop off all your inhibitions and everything that keeps you safe in the normal world. You have to drop that because that's not cool. You lose status if you keep it, and then you're expected to be open and sexual with everybody because that's what gives you status, and you're expected to be sexual because that's why you came here, blah blah blah, even if you don't feel like it. And any kind of resistance is an opportunity for growth. You have to overcome it, right? So it's just such a dangerous business. And the same in radical honesty, but without sex. And in some places, in some workshops, their sexual relationship, and
Mm.
it's the same principle. It's like if you feel resistant, that's something to overcome. If you feel fear, that's something to overcome.
Yeah.
Any kind of withholding is a form of lying. You lose status, so you're encouraged to overshare in order to gain status. It's just it's such a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Yeah, there's really something about throwing away the conventional norms. I mean, yeah, kind of coming back to how I woke up was reading the Louise Perry book because she was kind of the first person I'd ever read who or heard and listened to her audiobook and her podcast that said like there's important reasons for like conventional conservative social norms. And I was like, what a shocking thing to say. Like how dare you? I'm like a liberal progressive feminist. You can't say that. And then like learned more about it and was like, oh my God, I just want to be in like socially conservative spaces.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. I feel like it's interesting that you mentioned that mention it in the work in those culty spaces. You're like the old lady that kind of cautions everyone. It's like, well, that's not really, it's not, it's like that's dangerous and that's dangerous, and if you do this, like that might happen. It's like you need to think about it. It's like consider, risk, calculate your risks. And they go like, oh my God, you're like so stuck up your ass or something.
Yeah.
It's very similar how I feel right now with my clients. They're like, I had this amazing workshop and retreat, and I was like so high, and I'm like so like enlightened, and like I feel like there's like I can breathe better, and I talk with people so much easier. My voice is lower. I can feel like there's more space in my chest, and like this is, and I'm just thinking an LGAT. Okay, it's like how will I tell them that
Mm,
this will last like 2 weeks tops, and then there's gonna be the dopamine crash.
yeah. Yeah.
So, and then they will come to me and be like, my life is like I suck. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I'm like, no, babe, you're just being dysregulated.
Yeah.
And that's the consequences. And
Yeah.
because there's no environment, like because you don't know the things that have been done to you on you with your body using your agency, you think you're the problem when in fact the fucking retreat is the problem. The whole environment, the setup, this it's systematic. That's the fucking problem. It's not you. You need to sleep, eat, exercise, and get some vitamins and minerals and maybe get
And
some emotional mental health if it's bigger.
yeah, and socialize in kind of normative spaces too. Like there's a reset with social health that needs to happen as well. It's like going into going to an LGAT is like taking MDMA. Like you just have that high. It's amazing. You love everyone, and then you just have this overshoot of a low, and it's literally yeah, your body's trying to compensate for all the exhaustion and energy it took to create all those happy hormones, and you're just low, and you just have to come back to the normative again. But then yeah, then that's how people get addicted to drugs. You want the high again, you want the cycle. So it's just recreating hormonal experiences, but it's like extra lovely because it's in relation to people. It's so addictive. The connection, the status, plus the like lovey hormones. It's like the juiciest, most wonderful feeling.
Yeah. And they're like, I met these wonderful people while we were all high on ayahuasca. And it's like, yeah, you're
Yeah.
loving each other because you're high.
Yeah.
I starts to happen, and that's when you get to see who your real friends are. And please don't get scared when you notice that you're left alone, because normal people, like long-term friends, they don't, I don't know. Like I hope, I don't know. There's something about the normal society that who don't do drugs, they're just much more stable, and
Yeah.
they're there for you. It's like they're not flaky because they're not having their ups and downs, and
They're not selfish. They like actually care about that. There is no like demonizing of people pleasing. There's just like wanting to care for your friends and like
yeah.
care about what they think about you too.
Yeah.
So I was on a hen do this weekend,
Uh,
and with my sister who's on her way up to being a clinical psychologist, and she's in all these writing groups. She's so social. She has so many friends. Her friends are so normal. It was like 18 women, and I was like, like this is so weird for me because they're all so um like witty and like they're not lovey-dovey in like trying I don't even know how to describe it. They just talk about normal things like TV and being jealous of their boyfriends and like just normal woman things. There's no like trying to be superior of like above jealousy because we're poly. Like it's like, yeah, I dreamt that he cheated on me and I was so mad when I woke up with him. And everyone's like, ha, like that's yeah, we agree. We would like we're on your side. How dare he do that in your dream? Whereas like you would never have a conversation like that with all the high and mighty lovey people because they'd just be like it's such bad energy, like oh it's just such a trope. It was just so I felt like I was in a TV series, like a TV series of women talking to each other. I was like, this is amazing. And like they wanted to like I made this big buffet for the brunch and it was mixed, like it was loads of healthy stuff, but there was like M&Ms and Fanta and stuff, and some of them were like, I'm just gonna have Fanta and M&Ms, and I'm just like, that would be blasphemy at like a vegetarian retreat center, like
like that, all that sugar will give you cancer in no time.
yeah, it was just oh, it was just so fun. It was so fun. They were such a good crowd of girls. Sure, there was like bitchiness and whatever, but it was normal. Like it was that typical. I think like later on, my sister and I were sharing a room, so we could kind of like debrief on the dynamics, but not in like an analyzing way. More like she was like, "Oh, one of my friends that's come. I like it's all really good group of people, but if there will be any drama, it will be with her." Like that, just typical girl stuff. Oh,
That's very sweet.
oh, it was so sweet. I was so touched, but also kind of like I do not have friends like this. I do not have friend groups like this. I don't even know where to begin to find them or to interact with them, and I'd so love to. I mean, these are just friends, and these are so the one massive group was friends from her uni who she was like went to societies with. The other massive group was her writing friends. She has a writing group and they meet like every week, every Sunday at a bookstore to do their writing. I'm like, I don't have this kind of stability. Like everyone I know comes and goes, whatever they want, international. Like I'm not friends with anyone that I went to university with anymore because I was like deep in radical honesty cults when I was at uni. I'm sure, I mean, like I cringe now because there's this really good book called Insight by Tasha Eurich, who's an organizational psychologist. She's like, um, she's like the way what shame is to Brené Brown. She's like what insight is to her. She's gotten really famous off of it and wrote all this book and did a TED talk and all that kind of stuff. And she talks about like true self-awareness being two things. One of it is being internally self-aware and externally self-aware. And the internally is like how things that you know about yourself, but more through like a psychometric lens, like how much do you really understand your own traits, not like trauma, but like can you understand your personality. And the external self-awareness is, do you understand how other people see you? And she's saying you really need both. And she gave us an example of how she has a friend who thinks they're really self-aware, especially internally self-aware, and they've spent hundreds of pounds on personal development courses, they do all this therapy, and she's like, but the reality with this friend is that a lot of all their friends think they're stuck up and entitled, whereas they think they're like the most self-aware person in the world. And I'm like, oh my God, that was me. That was me for like my entire 20s, basically.
Yeah, me too. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, so embarrassing. Because that's another kind of thing, like it was so interesting to observe with these women, because that's a kind of another thing women do in groups for loads of different reasons. But there is this kind of like um called tall poppy syndrome. Like you can't get too big for your boots because you'll get cut down by the by the group. It's like if anyone does get too high horsey, they kind of have to do a little self-deprecating dance of like, oh, but who am I? Because I also fart and poop and all this stuff. Like it's a really funny scene in Mean Girls. It's like that really classic American rom-com where they're all standing in front of the mirror and taking going like, oh, my cuticle beds are too big, because like it's also what like very typical of what women can do to keep the group behaving, but also for social cohesion. And that kind of shit doesn't exist in personal development worlds. Like everybody becomes this like just like super narcissistic, arrogant. There's nobody kind of like checking, keeping everyone in check behavior, really.
Yeah, although I would say it's a different level of that kind of cohesion, but it's very perverted
Yeah.
in a way that I really found, I wonder what I should bring up Misha's email about the agreements being fascist.
Yeah, yeah, do it.
I think that somebody from it's either Mac or somebody from Radical Honesty wrote that agreements are fascist and we need to like get rid of them or something. And then a bunch of people wrote something that line by line Brad would say. It's like the honor and something something. It's like I've heard all those lines over the years in Radical Honesty. There was nothing unique. And Misha wrote an email that was truly unique, where it's like the agreements are fascist. First of all, is this point, and that one like made 3 points. And I was like, I haven't heard that argumentation in this cult for years. So that's new idea. But he ended his sentence with, and I'm really like, I notice tightness in my chest. And I imagine I'm nervous. And it's like he finished the sentence in order to reapply for the status, reapply for cohesion. It's like, and I'm with you guys. I'm doing the reporting and the differentiating, noticing from thinking. And please like accept what I just wrote.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Where, yeah, see, like, it's like if you're gonna say something against the group, you still have to, yeah, and see, that's slightly different with the girl group, I think, when I'm talking about it's like if
Mm,
someone will need to stand up and get serious, shit stands up and gets serious. It's almost like all the social norms go for
mhm.
the like serious conversation to be had, and the kind of down putting of themselves is for the cohesive moments. So that's really interesting that that's something that gets perverted in moments when there shouldn't be cohesion. There is very serious conflict happening, and it's like, yeah, don't punish me. Here's my belly. I'm still behaving.
Yeah, I
Mm.
like the idea. Here's my belly.
Yeah. All right, yeah, it's a great. I took my dog and my cat to the vet today, and my cat was so stoic. Like they jabbed him, and he was like, didn't even blink. The fucking dog, he's such a pussy. Like he was like in my like tummy, like ah, jabbed him. So he's the one. He's like, here's my belly.
Yeah, it also reminds me, it's like I never paid attention to just how everyone is on their bellies in Radical Honesty on the supervision and trainer supervision calls on any like communities. Like everybody starts speaking. It's like I notice tension in my belly, sweaty palms, dry mouths. Like, yeah, symptoms of anxiety, fella. It's like, okay, it's like, and then I imagine I'm thinking that I'm scared to speak. It's like, why are you afraid to speak if we're all here living and accepting? And it's like encouraging to be whoever's like you, it's like
Yeah.
radical honesty is about complete self-expression. It's like you spend several years in this community. Why are you still afraid to speak?
Yeah. And what I was always afraid of, because I was so afraid to speak up on the Zoom calls, especially. Groups were so, like it was scary in groups, but the Zoom calls, oh my God, I would be so afraid. And what I was afraid of was I never quite knew whether someone was going to like dig into me or whether we were talking about something else. Like even like community stuff or courses or like there were so many informal moments where someone would be like, how do you make that personal? I was so afraid of that question to do anything to make it look like I was already doing that. So I'd be like, oh, I'm just like some weird psychoanalytic self thing of like, yeah, my tummy's thingy, but I'm this, but maybe I'm not. Haha, who's next? Like it was, oh, it was terrifying.
Yeah, it's used as a control technique
Yeah.
where you have to psychoanalyze yourself. You have to psychoanalyze, overshare, predict what they're gonna be asking and digging, how to make it personal for yourself. How is this what does this remind you of? Like something. So you're forced to psychoanalysis to then to overshare in order to be accepted in the group and actually not
Yeah.
be
And
chastised.
not, yeah, and not just accepted, but like judged, genuinely judged for the next stage of the trainership. Like all of these moments were like moments of, you knew like these trainers that were voting on you were measuring on your like it was just it was never just a conversation. It was always like a, I have to use the language right. I have to make it look like I am, don't care about my reputation and like all these stupid like rules. Yeah.
Rose, could you tell me a little bit how you left, like at what, how was your trainer candidacy? Because there are things that you experienced that I have not, and I wonder if you would share a little bit of that because I don't think that we've covered a lot of your how was it for you to be a trainer candidate?
Hmm.
Also, I acknowledge this, it might be personal, I don't want to, bring it up. So I'm just wondering if you do.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it was what I just said, which there was like there was this, they felt like there was this constant, there was this constant expectation to be using the language all the time for a start because you'd be corrected if you didn't. Like I can't think of specific examples, but like most of my experience of a TC was done through Zoom. It was done through like through through group stuff on Zoom. The workshops were slightly different because it was you had to behave differently in a group than you did on the calls.
What
Um,
What was your conditions in order to become a trainer? What was your expectations? Like how much money, how many trainings? Like how was it? Because on my side, I know there's like the board has been reinventing the shit and changing their minds like and I was not impacted or affected by those decisions that they were making. So, and I know that the my trainees were, and that's
oh
the reason
yeah.
they're like still mad at me because I was part of the problem, right? That was the one who enabled the board to abuse them.
Mm,
But I know that even each trainer candidate, which now I know, before I thought we're all like on the same level and have the same quotas to, I thought there's more equity in that case. But now I know that each trainer candidate experienced their candidacy or the experience in radicalness was different based on who was their main trainer. For example, you work with Pete and Tulia, and
yeah.
there's worked with me and Marvin, for example, or there's with Christoph and Selina. And
Yeah.
depending on who you work with, you got a different flavor of bullshit.
Yeah. Not just a different flavor of bullshit, but like that you there was no way to measure how well you were doing or where you are on the path because it was different with each person. Like for Pete and Tulia, I seemed to be like really far away from trainership in terms of like, um how did it like how do yeah, so like from the very beginning it was Brad that was like, I think you should become a trainer, and I was like, I didn't even consider this. Okay, this is great. And I kind of just thought he'll just pass me because he loves me. um, and then
Which
it
probably
was,
that's what exactly what he would do if not the board.
yeah, and I think that's why I joined because I like I didn't really wanted, I don't know, I was so influenced by him, and I thought, well, this seems like relatively easy. I wasn't joining to do this amount of training, this amount of time, and this amount of money. It was like I wouldn't have if I knew that was the path. Um, it was definitely like a, this seems so much easier than I thought it was going to be. Like I when I remember being in the workshop being like, this doesn't look too hard. Oh, and I think that's so easy for everyone to say when it comes to stuff like that. But I remember thinking like, yeah, I can train. I'll do this. I'll just do that. This looks good. But I was also really naive in general about psychotherapy and how long it takes to train in psychotherapy as well.
Here, I just want to share that I had another friend of mine saying, "Hey, I just attended Pete and Tulia's A-Day and I would like to become a trainer. Like, can you inform me what I need to do?" And I'm like, "Well, that's gonna take you another 5 years based on what's happening right now." And she's like, What am I gonna do for 5 years?" It's like it just seems such a simple thing. You just keep pointing people in their bodies, and that's it. And I'm like, "Well, you just don't get it. There's a whole thing. It's like there's such depth, like yada 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 brainwashing," and she never replied.
I know, yeah. I think that's definitely people's first experiences because it was same with this lady that I spoke to on the phone who had a networking call with who'd she just been to a workshop and she was like, I could do this. And I'm like, yeah, you could. You absolutely could. And anybody can, but that's the issue. Like, and then we went into more about that. But then they just released the 9 month call, and then I thought, and again, it was like not really clear. I thought, well, if I do, then it was called a 9 month course, which is now year one. And I was like, well, if I do that, then I'll be a trainer. Like it was somehow in my head that that was the process, and then that finished, and there was kind of no like there was no way to know where you were. It was just like people were interested, and then some people were trainers, and some people were doing stuff. And I'm like, how do I get in here? And then it was like you just have to keep coming to workshops and do your work. So I just kind of kept coming to stuff. I was also a bit lost in the whole thing. And then I think at one point I did say like I would like to do this. How do I do this? And I went on a call with Pete and Tulia. And then this was the first time I'd had like a different viewpoint to Brad, because Brad was just like, "You'd be great, do it." And they're like, "You are so far away from this. You'd need to join our." Because I think I asked if I could join their training program, and they said, "No, you're not ready, but join our like year-long practice one. Like you might be ready for that." And I remember, like, I remember talking to my dad about it, and he was like, "But then will you become a trainer after this?" And I was like, yeah, they said once I do this, then I could do the training one and then I'll be a trainer. And he was like, I mean, he was really supportive. He was willing to help pay for it because he wanted me to progress in my career. And he was like, okay, but like check with them. And I was like, okay. And I think I vaguely checked. And again, the conversations were just like vague. If you do this, then yeah, it will look good, and then do that. There was no kind of promises. So
Kind
did
of
the
gone to my ass. There's no clarity. It's so annoying. It's like
yeah.
it just like from the very get-go, there's no clarity about so many things. Even about like a trainer candidate, like Misha asked, like as asked Selena. Selena has been doing this for fucking 10 years. And he asked, what tax category do I take out as a German in Germany to do this job? And she's like, I have no idea. And he's like, I'm gonna ask Sarah, who is in the fucking US,
Oh
has
no.
no knowledge or experience. And Sarah's like, what? I have no idea. And it's like he needs to talk with the Germans, right?
Oh,
It's not, no clarity. It's like, hey, you've been doing this for 10 years. How did you do it? It's like, well, I don't know. I used Eventbrite and then the thing to the government. And it's like, fucking report her because she obviously is doing something wrong. She doesn't even know how the fuck she's making money, or is she even paying taxes? Then normal organizational information, it's non-existent.
No, and I remember, like, to be fair on my dad, he did try to like be like, how much are you gonna pay them? And then how much are you expected to be paid? Is this a good investment? Like he was trying to break all that math down with me, but of course I was like, no, but my own personal journey, whatever, blah. Like wasn't thinking about it in a rational way at all because it was just so love bombed and excited to be part of this community, which I adored. And I think that was the weird thing with Thule and Pete thing, like you're saying about having different people that coach you. So Brad was like my primary trainer for most of my first workshops and like one-on-one stuff with him. Then going to Pete and Tulia when Brad started stepping back, and then I was not going to Greece so much. Brad wasn't coming to Greece so much, so like Pete and Tulia were the monopoly in Europe, and they didn't know me, and they were like, you're, as far as they're concerned, I'm like at the bottom of the development in radical honesty, whereas to Brad I was like basically trainer. So I was like, oh, this is weird, like now I have to prove myself to them, which
Mhm.
meant every time I was in courses or something with them, it was like, then I was really trying to prove myself. Whereas with Brad, I didn't do that. I just like he was just weird with me and adored me. So I was like, well, this must be what being a trainer is. I mean, looking back, I'm so glad I wasn't more involved with like that because that could have been such a fucking shit show. But definitely with Pete and Tulia, I was like, oh, we'll take all my money. I have to prove myself to you because they'd rejected me for the trainership course that they do. Um, and yeah, and that whole thing is weird because it's a personal practice course, but they know I wanted to be a trainer. So it wasn't really my personal practice. It was me consistently trying to at the same time know that they're judging me to be accepted to the next thing. So it felt like a training course, but it was for me to do my personal work. Yeah, that was weird. That was strange. So they like I would just tell them everything that about me. I was just try to be like authentic and as vulnerable, plus as like strong as I could. Like, look how good I am at talking about all these absolutely horrific things over and over and over and over again, like to death. Um, and they knew everything about like my personal stuff at home, like an assault that happened when I was a child. They knew about the assault that happened at Brad's workshops, and again, it was just like it never ended. Like, what was the end point here? There was no like reason for me to join the personal practice course for my own. Like they thought it would help me to get over trauma or whatever. It was yeah, it was just purely so that I could get onto the training course. So there's something weird there.
Mhm.
Um, and then I don't really know. And then I think the year two came out, and we were told we had to do the year two course. And then by then, I think like me and the cohort I was with were like starting to get a bit gnarly because we're like, what the fuck is going on? We're sort of like we're all paying money and everything's changing, and we like don't understand. And then I think they said the thing about the 2 8 days as well. And I'd done like a few of the 7 day stuff with Brad where like it wasn't an 8 day, but like I don't know, like it started to get more refined. So shit was just constantly changing. It was just more and more money, more and more workshops. I do remember I was starting to get really exasperated and felt like it was Groundhog Day because I felt like I was just talking about like there was nothing new happening. It was all the same stuff I was talking about. Um, yeah. So being a TC was shit, really, really shit. And then it only started to get a bit better when um, I started to work with Mac, and Mac was willing to come to Scotland because Pete and Tully made it really clear they weren't going to work with me. And then again, it was weird because Mac's like, "You could be a trainer now," and then went to the yeah,
Uh,
and then went. Oh, that was it. Then we had to go to the TT because you have to, and then to officially want to be a TC, you have to go to the trainers training, which is so expensive. And like, okay, so went to that thing, and then there it was with like Marvin and Gudrun, and Marvin's like, I thought you were a TC. And Gudrun's like, oh, you could be like, you should be a trainer now. So it was like so confusing, everyone's different definition of like the standard for passing.
That is that makes me suspicious about Pete and Tulip, knowing just how much they want to lock in everyone so that that they remain a monopoly. That the
Oh,
reason
yeah.
their standards are high or impossible, so that they wouldn't have any competition. And everybody who's in their team on their website, they're not they're their bottom dogs.
Yeah, none of them have successful businesses. I know. I was also looking at that when I was thinking about applying for them. And that's why I ended up reaching out to you and Marvin because I was like, well, you two have become successful in Radical Honesty without Pete and Tulia, as far as I know. So like maybe you guys are doing something different. But yeah, there was that, and my partner was so suspicious of Pete and Tulia because they tried to block an 8 day happening here. There was a few other, yeah, they didn't like Mac coming over to Europe. And Mac was like the only person willing to pay me and to work with me and to come to Scotland. And I was like, this is getting so fucking weird with Pete and Tulia. And I'd like paid for personal therapy with Pete, but like nothing got better. And they seemed to like, yeah, I think I was just like their ideal customer. I just gave them so much money. Oh, Callum and I went to their couples workshop, and of course, like we were like, we'll just come every year. This is so amazing. They were like, you should bring Callum's mom because you have all these problems with Callum's mom. Like, I think I was just, and I would write so much good stuff about them on social media in particular. Like, I was like such a trumpet for Honesty Europe, more than Radical Honesty. So yeah, just ugh.
Yeah, sorry. It's really annoying and frustrating.
Yeah, it is, and I'm just like, fuck, I'm so it's so naive. Yeah, just like have no idea if people have not been in a work environment before as well. I
And you're also very young when you started.
yeah. I mean, like, so who have they passed? Like Kasha, Mika. Like neither of them are doing really well with Radical Honesty. Like Mika's got a full-time job doing something. Like most people have to have another job to be a Radical Honesty trainer. And the only ones that are actually making full-time money are the ones that either train trainers or have like huge monopolies.
Basically, it's still a multi-level marketing company. The ones on the top get the most
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a very like parenting friendly job either. Like that's the thing. There's all this preaching about such a guise for like being so children conscious. Like, children are the ones that express themselves so truthfully. We need to learn more from them. And it's like just not coherent at all with like relating and talking to children. It's so inappropriate. But B, like any person that then becomes a parent are also kind of excluded from Radical Honesty because you can't keep in the status game and you also can't do the job. You can't like travel and do the workshops. Like Chelsea, as soon as she's kind of become a mom, she's realized she can't do this. I don't know how Selena does it actually. Like,
It
and
doesn't,
even then, she's disclosed that she doesn't. Because I asked on a Facebook post once, how much money does everyone make, and she made the least amount of money out of all of them.
because she's not leading any workshops.
Yeah,
She appears on an online in one webinar or one supervision. She's not leading any work. She's not teaching radical honesty.
no, which means she's either being supported by someone else or she's got like other money coming in somewhere. I mean, that was the most annoying part for me. It was this illusion of what I was buying into and investing into. And actually, like, they weren't honest at all about their circumstances. A lot of them were struggling financially, or this just wasn't their full time job. And that's like, you see that across the coaching industry in general, that it's like most people, like acting and people waitressing, that most people that do coaching have to have a part time job.
Yeah.
False industry. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did it and it was exhausting to travel every month or
Mm-hmm.
twice a month and to have weekly workshops or to have weekend workshops every 2 weeks or so. I did not have time for health checks, basic
Yeah.
stuff. Like yeah.
But was it, do you mind me asking, like, was that actually a sustainable income?
Well, once I started to work, at what point? So once I became a trainer, that's when I became useful and that's when I started to be useful and also competing with other trainers. So I became useful for those trainers who needed a second co-trainer, and I
Mm.
was directly competing with those that started before me.
Mm.
So there was an interest in joining the forces because I had a big community, like I had a big following. Um, and then the money, yeah, I don't know. I've never, when in radical honesty, I think like I made like 38,000 a year.
Mm.
That was, I don't know, maybe that was before taxes. That was income. So I was making up to 48,000 euro a year. And only in 2013, with all the 8 days, I made six, no, with 80s and coaching. So most of my coaching clients also came from workshops. And that's when that was the first time when I made 60K. That
Oh,
was the
wow.
most I've ever made. And
Mm,
that was the year that I dropped out.
mm,
And then I went into minus because I wasn't able to work.
mm,
So it wasn't a money making thing. It was also lots of costs, um,
mhm,
traveling. Yeah, but what was feeding was the excitement. I was like, yes, we're changing the world. We're doing the good thing. This is exciting. We're healing and like all it was rewarding in different ways. There was lots of status. I felt really secure within the community until I realized that everyone are fawning.
mm.
Yeah. But money wise, like I was never in it for the money, but I will always use radical honesty to like to just get by, to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
I think that was my main irk with a TC. Well, there was two main irks. One was this kind of like just painfully constant Groundhog Day of continuous psychoanalysis, the same stuff, and nothing was seemed really changing. And then B was the kind of disillusionment of what I'd signed up for. Like there was one point where I thought I was signing up to be a psychotherapist, but that like very quickly got rubbed off the books when they took away things like 8 days of psychotherapy, a year of psychotherapy in one day, kind of thing. And then what kind of money you're actually making or how much work you're having to put in to make it, or like what kind of sales tactics you're gonna have to put in to get the following. To like there is so much back. Like yeah, what I it's funny now, not like this would ever happen, but what I would have really wanted was some sort of conversation where it's like most of this work goes into signing people up to workshops, so you're basically in event management and sales is most of your job. um and when you become a mom, you won't be able to do it anymore. This is like not congruent. Like, no, God, when I was pregnant, everyone was just like, yay, and no one was like, you might have to start thinking about career development. There was none of those kind of like pep talks. So like if any of that was said early on, of course I would have been like, oh, maybe I'll pick a different career path. Yeah.
I remember Elaine shared that once she gave birth to her son, that's when she felt incredibly lonely. And suddenly all this community that cared about each other, nobody reached out to her. Nobody asked how she's doing.
Mm.
She was completely left alone and behind. And she said that's when other therapists nudged her into like the ethical therapy.
Yeah.
And she actually nudged me to NARM, and NARM
Mm.
nudged me out of the cult.
Yeah.
Just thinking about a few people who asked me once I left Radical Honest and they shared why I'm leaving. There is one man who said, hey, I want to know everything, but I'm also joining Pete and Tulia's practitioner programs. Like, do you recommend it? And I'm like, no, I don't. But I think he still joined, probably with the expectation for him to become a trainer. But what he does not know is that he just joined a monopoly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's not getting anywhere near to compete
Yeah.
with Pete and Tulia.
No, no, of course not. Of course not. Yeah. I mean, I think it's especially insidious when you're joining to want to go up the ranks to become a trainer. Radical honesty. I think that's where it's really poisonous. It's still possible for people to want to come and interact purely as like curious, inquisitive participants, but even then, there would need to be so much fucking. Like I'm thinking about the thing of like people going to LGATs and loving it. That will never go away. Like people will always like they'll just recreate that same style of group stuff. Yeah, there just seems to be something particularly insidious of joining these things and then being like, oh, A, I love the space, but B, I want to do it too. I want to teach it too and become just as successful as these people. That's like, that's really hollow and misdirected. Mm.
I'm thinking about the new code of conduct that just came out recently.
Oh, One of my friends came over for lunch yesterday who had also been to some of my events in the shed. And the first thing she said when she came in the door was, "What the fuck was that newsletter the other day? What the fuck?" She was like, she said all it looked like to her, and she'd been to two workshops, was them trying to spell out why they weren't a cult.
God.
And overdoing the diversity stuff. Look, we're not just white anymore.
Yeah, we have one black person. Oh, this reminds me of Erickson's. There's such a coaching, Erickson's coaching foundation, like some big organization doing coaching, and they're like, there, it's all about inclusion and equity, and there's like big pictures of people of color. And I open the board right there, you can see the boards. They're like 40 white people.
Yeah, that's like radical honesty. Oh.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's such a long and boring document. Eventually, I didn't finish reading it, because I know it's all nonsense. But
It's
like,
all AI written as well. Like it
yeah,
hasn't been filtered through with any critical eye. Like it's yeah.
and one thing, so I know how much pain it brought to, because I had another, I did not get the new, I don't do not get the news from Radical Honest unless they send the things that they want to communicate to me. That's not the thing that they wanted to communicate to me, obviously. So I did not get the newsletter. But a former member, she sent it to me, and it was really sad because she felt really like the pain was triggered in her
Mm,
about being left behind. And she said, like, I'm so frozen and just like helpless. And it's like, I keep thinking, what about me? And I'm also just thinking about all the people who were harmed, and how cheerful, like just how offensive it is to read from such a cheerful, privileged white man who has no experience what it's like to be abused like that, the way that we did.
mm,
Like now we're the best, we're again the best organization in the world. Under a brand, we were the most honest organization in the world, the most honest community in the world. Now it's like the most ethical organization in the world. Even coaches don't have such things. But here's the thing, if like I know that everyone in the accountability circle have conflicts of interests.
mhm,
Everybody's bought in. They're all emotionally and financially incestuous. And there's no organization that I can report them to. And
mm,
that's I know how that is bullshit. They're also not transparent about their business registration. As LLC, they should have everything available, published online about their finances and registration business number and like the legal information. There's nothing to be found.
wow.
So even if I want to go and report it and my like use my own legal, my own countries or EU, for example, legal system, I still need their fucking um business registration number, some sort of legal information of them,
Mm,
because I cannot just report Radical Honesty LLC. It's like I need more, but they would
mm,
not give it out. Um, and that's how you know that the whole thing is bullshit. There's no big organization that holds them accountable. Everybody on accountability are incestuous. They're like they're either emotionally involved or financially involved,
mm.
and they have one black person that they groomed for years,
Who has been in other similar encounter group style shit, like has been in AA for years.
and who's also potentially teaching and preaching um, harmful information about groups and things, who is totally catering to vulnerable people. So it's just bad. It's just bad.
Is
It's
there really, you know, are there invoices? Is there anything official about the company?
yeah, probably if the invoices are legit. Let me check. Actually, I'm curious whether there is information on the invoices.
I'll need to go in about 5 minutes, by the way.
Okay.
But you're right, there's no, that's so interesting. It's just, yeah, the Radical Honesty Institute LLC, it gives their address, postcode. It's registered in Denver. Ah, phone number and then an email. But yeah, you're right. There's no company number.
Oh, interesting, because before it says it was registered in California.
Oh,
And
well,
then
this is an
when
old
Brad
one.
when Brad was then under Brad, it was registered in Virginia. So if it's in Denver, that means it's either Maggie or Tony Chakras.
Well, this was from November 2023. But yeah, it uses QuickBooks, so it just gets you just have to click it and it takes you somewhere else.
So it happened what we feared the most to happen, that they will sugarcoat themselves and pretend that they fixed the problem, and in fact, nothing was fixed.
Just took all the information that was given freely, like the resources and everything, and said these are all things that could be wrong, and just made it look like they were all solved. Mm.
Yeah.
Without any credit to the people that went through shit to kind of realize that. Yeah.
Yeah, and no acknowledgement what actually happened to the truth tellers, to the people who actually dare to tell the truth.
Yeah.
All right, I think I'm gonna pour myself a glass of wine and just call it a day and fuck this shit. I'm
Oh,
gonna
I
take
want wine.
hangover though. There's consequences.
That's true. That's true. I'll have some chocolate instead.